Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back into OTRAM's YouTube channel. Today we're rebuilding the center link off of an FJ40. It's pretty simple, but I figured I've got to do one today, might as well shoot a video on it. We're going to use one of the Joint Fuji Japanese rebuild kits that you can get from Cruiser Brothers, Cruiser Outfitters, a lot of the normal suppliers. So yeah, so we've already got this guy off the truck. Actually, a customer brought it to me to rebuild, but it's just the 4 mounting bolts to the frame and then the steering linkages to get it off. And the first thing we're going to do is stick it in the vise here. Let me zoom you in a little bit. Stick it in the vise there. The customer's already loosened up the nut. So we'll just go ahead and set that off to the side. We can get our pitman arm puller and slide this on here. Normally, this guy goes on a lot easier. There we go. And we'll go ahead and tighten this up until we break the taper on the arm. And then gets free. Although it didn't come completely free. There it goes. And we can take the arm off. We'll set that aside for a minute. We'll flip this over. And we'll take this 14mm center bolt out. We'll set it off to the side. And then the top cap's just a 22. We'll just thread it out. Man, this thing is gross inside. So that's out. You can just push up. This toothed washer will come out. And then your actual shaft. And then there's a retainer sleeve, or like a bushing here, that's got a tab bent over. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a tab bent over here into like the Zerk fitting pocket. So you just got to bend that out of the back out. There we go. And we'll pop that through from the other side. Flip this guy back over. Pop what's left of the seal out. And then there's the sleeve, and you can see the tab that we bent out of the way. So pretty much all we're going to reuse is the housing and the arm. Everything else we've got new in the kit. So I'm going to go ahead, throw these in the parts washer so they can get all cleaned up, and once they're done cleaning, I'll bring you back. Okay, so we're back. We've got everything cleaned up. I went through with a wire brush and chased the threads in here and cleaned everything out. So the first thing we're going to do is take the new seal from our kit. Let me zoom that in a little bit more. Whoop. We'll take our new seal from our kit and press it down here into the bottom. And then just drive it in flush. And then we'll take a little bit of grease and stick the grease, some on the inside of this lip here, so we're not putting the shaft in dry. And then I like to take a smear of grease and run it around. I'm having a heck of a time getting the camera to look at this. Around the inside face. Technically, there's no motion or anything against this surface, but a lot of these that we get in here have gotten water in between the bushing sleeve and the case, and they get really corroded and pitted. So I like to stick just a smear of grease in there, just to help seal it so that it doesn't get corroded. And then we'll put the housing here back in the vise. And we've got our new bushing, and you can see these two tabs. We're going to put that in here, and we're going to line that tab up with the Zerk fitting bore. I'm going to flip this around this way so it's easier to hit with a hammer. You just line that groove up, and then you can just take a punch and bend that tab down. And then we've got the new actual shaft, and we're going to pump this full of grease when we're all done. But to make sure everything gets covered nicely, I like to put some on the actual shaft before it goes in. There we go. We can drop that guy down in there, give it a little spin. And now we can start putting the rest of everything back. So you've got this spring washer plate that slips down here. And I think I just did that backwards. Yes. Did I? It takes me a minute to think on these for a minute. I was doing that wrong. Okay. So this plate goes down in there. And I'm doing that backwards. Yeah, so the spring here sits down inside the pocket in the top of that shaft. And then this washer with the tab on it goes into the same pocket that you just bent the other tab into. And the tab kind of curves down, so that just faces down into the shaft. And then it's just kind of a wiggling game to get that all in there. And then this guy on top and then started without cross-threading everything. Come on. that plate wants to sit crooked in there. So it's hard to get it to compress and this to start. There we go. So yeah, sometimes it just takes a lot of fiddling to get that to start. You just want to be careful that you don't put a lot of pressure on there until you know your threads are going, so that you don't cross thread and strip everything out. And then you just tighten it down until it's tight, and then back it off a quarter of a turn. And then this little lock guy goes in here. I'm going to go grab a wrench for that one. And this one can be fiddly to get started too, since it's going down into that plate that's kind of just sitting in there. But this one just goes down and gets snugged up, because it's just a jam nut. Now we can flip it over. Make sure our seal is still happy. And then we can take, and it helps if you put it on the right way around, we can take our arm and put it back on. And it doesn't matter where you put this on right now, because you can spin it. And then we'll put the nut on loosely, just to get it to seat on the splines. And then I actually put these back on the truck before I do the final torque, because it's easier to torque everything once all the linkages are on to hold this from spinning. So once that's done, we can just take our grease gun on the Zerk fitting on the side here. And we can pump some grease into that cavity that's in the middle. And you want to be careful with the amount of grease you put in there. Watch the seal in here. If you pump it too full, you can push that seal back out. So there we go. We're feeling like we're getting some resistance. And we'll clean that off. And now it's ready to go back in the truck. And a lot of times when I put it in, I'll take this nut back off once it's in the truck, put some red Loctite on there, and then do my final torque. And it'll be, well, it's really stiff now, but it'll be really stiff until it works in some. So you may notice stiffness in the steering. You can always back it off a little bit more if you find it to be too tight. But anyway, that's the quickie on rebuilding the center link. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please subscribe below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.